Welcome back. So first off, I'm wearing my Her Carl T-shirt. This is one for me to wear when I go to Disney. My wife has the female version of the as that as well. I want to talk about Doctor Who's episode Boom, which I understand came out almost a week ago. So it'd be like me reviewing a hockey game from 4 days ago. I don't expect a lot of views, which is kind of how that works with Doctor Who reviews, and I understand that. But I do want to talk about this episode. It feels like Boom was really showing what Ncuti Gatwa can do as the Doctor. Some excellent acting from him. Millie Gibson is absolutely remarkable as the new companion as Ruby, and I think that Ruby Sunday is really they're building up the lore here. At least they're building up the tension of what she's going to be and what she's going to do. Again, we had the snow, and again we had musical references, and it does feel like musical references, babies, something to do with Ruby. All of this is connected, and of course, keep in mind that the Timeless Child is how the Doctor Who run ended under Jodie Whittaker. That was the big reveal, which people didn't like. I didn't like it either, but it definitely seems like Russell T Davies is leaning into that, and it feels like it's all going to tie together. I'm not sure how Ruby's fate's going to be tied to the Doctor's, but it really feels like there's something there. And I'm the only thing that threw me off with this episode was that it was kind of dark, it was kind of scary, which is fine. That's Doctor Who's bread and butter. That's where some of the best episodes I've watched. Midnight was like the tensest episode ever, and you never do see the monster. That's the wonderful thing with the episode Midnight. You never see the monster, and in this one, it's similar in that there's villains you never see. There's another side of a war you never see because, I mean, spoiler alert, but they're not there. They don't exist. And so that's where things were interesting to me, was the idea that you could fight a war and have basically you're creating your own casualties. This AI, this algorithm's creating the casualties as well. And so it was a fascinating tale from that perspective, but I did think it got kind of goofy at the end. One thing that, and this is an old Doctor Who trope. This is standard that they will write the Doctor into a corner, and then what saves the Doctor and saves the day is usually kind of head scratching, where you're like, what? So like, there's been times where love has saved the day, like, oh well, and everybody believed hard enough that now the Doctor's fine. What? Huh? Or the sonic screwdriver magically can solve everything. Everything. That was especially bad in the Matt Smith era, where it felt like the sonic screwdriver could fix everything. It was so bad that when Peter Capaldi took over, they actually took away the sonic screwdriver, had him have sonic sunglasses, and then he didn't really have a sonic for a little bit there because I think they felt like they were overly reliant on it. It became this MacGuffin that was used to get them out of every possible situation. It was the Deus Ex Machina of the show. Now, again, and I understand too, they're trying to appeal to kids, so maybe that's why there were some kind of goofy moments in the closing there. But again, if you want to believe that the overarching storyline could be that this whole season is them in a television show, and knowing they're in a television show, some of it starts to make a little more sense. But again, I thought Boom was really well written. It shows that Stephen Moffat knows his audience, that he knows how to create tension. And honestly, while he had some drawbacks as a showrunner, as a writer, he really is quite good. And I guess this week we're going with a brand new type of monster. That's the belief. That's the expectation, and that's the way that they're billing it. So we'll see. The problem with that being that they're basically tagging it as the strangest of the monsters we've seen in Doctor Who. Well, that's an interesting way to go about it. We've seen some strange ones. We've also seen some dumb ones over the years. So fingers crossed this gets really good. I've seen people say that this episode Boom was better than the first two. Well, the episodes are progressively getting more serious and more into the lore, which again is what Russell T Davies did with the first season. If you go back and watch the first season, the one where Chris Eccleston is the Doctor, you will see that it does start out kind of goofy. The Autons, the mannequins come to life to take over humanity. it's a goofy concept. It's an old concept, but it's a goofy concept. And then we go to Earth 2 where humans are cats. And there's human cat hybrids in the show here and there through Russell T Davis's run, which tells you something happened somewhere along the line that really probably shouldn't happen. But it's interesting, and then things get really serious going forward past those first couple of episodes. So I do expect that to continue. That we'll see more serious storylines and not necessarily bigger stakes. Sometimes the stakes in the show aren't necessarily that big. Like for instance, in Boom, it was the Doctor, right? Yes, he's trying to save a world that's at war, essentially with itself, but the Doctor was in some peril. I did wonder how that would work because if something goes off, so if that mind goes off, and if he got turned into whatever those things were that like it dehydrates you, I guess, or just turns you into this 3.5 pounds or 6 pounds or whatever it is. It was gross. It was honestly, it was kind of gross to see these corpses being carried around. I was like, that's I know what they're getting at, because with Doctor Who, of course, it has to be bloodless because it's supposed to be a show that kids can watch. It's supposed to be PG rated. That was kind of gross. People in a little tube, squished down into the tube, and you could kind of see like there was like this shiny pink, and I was like, it's kind of gross. It's kind of nasty. And again, and I don't mean that from a perspective of like, obviously I've watched the Terrifier movies; those are gross. But just from the perspective of a show that little kids can watch, that's kind of. I mean, if kids asking, is that a person? Yeah, apparently that's this person squished down, and they're in a little tube, and yeah, ew, yuck. The other thing that threw me off too was the daughter. So the dad, and they made this whole sob story out of the dad, and I knew what was coming. I knew exactly what was coming. I could see it from a mile away. And so he doesn't make it. He gets taken out by a landmine, and his daughter comes, and that because in these tubes you've got this message that's in there from the dead, and so when the dead in the messenger basically finds out, oh, his daughter's here, then it projects a hologram of the dad, and she goes running at the hologram, and she keeps talking, I want to see my dad, I want to be with my dad. And I kept thinking, okay, I can understand that this little girl's had a psychological break, but it's a hologram. Anybody could see that's a hologram. She doesn't seem to be thinking, oh my gosh, my father's died. She's just along the lines of, hey, it's my dad, but it's not your dad. And she seemed old enough to me anyways that she would have known the difference, and she would have been kind of ticked off. I kept waiting for her to start yelling at the Doctor, like, what did you do to my dad, kind of thing. It never really happened. And then everything is wonderful at the end. And it was weird because they kind of portrayed it like, isn't this a good ending? And I'm thinking, well, no, he's still dead. Like the version of him that went through and saved the day wasn't the real him. That was the digital version of him. This is why when people talk about, someday we'll be able to transfer our consciousness to an AI, and we'll live on that way. Well, no, the AI would have our memories. It's not us. The essence of us is in us, and it's not like, I don't mean to get overly deep here, but no, it's not technically you. It may have your memories and your voice and your appearance, but it's not technically you. And so to me, when I saw the hologram, it wasn't technically him. The Doctor talking to and persuading the hologram to try to help them out. Great. It's a great scene. Very well done. But again, and appealing to the father and appealing to him as the father. And I'm thinking, okay, so we're still hinting around that the granddaughter is going to play a role at the end of this season, and I'm here for it. I think that's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with it. But it was an interesting episode. It's a very simple episode. Sometimes the best Doctor Who episodes don't involve a whole bunch of crazy alien monsters, and they don't necessarily involve a bunch of fighting and guns and stuff. Sometimes it's as simple as the Doctor standing on a bomb that is set off by motion, and he can't move, because if he moves, it's going to go off. So it was very well written from that perspective. Again, the storyline where you see Ruby doesn't have any fear, and if she does have fear, she just fights through it, and her bravery's there. Eventually, that I think is going to cost her. I've seen way too many storylines where the companion gets too overconfident, or they make a mistake because they figure, well, the doctor will bail me out, and then he doesn't. I do worry, and I know that she's still in next season as well, but I do worry at the end of this season what's going to happen. And again, there's going to be two companions next season, so that should be fun. Will one of them be Susan? I know that the actor is not doesn't look anything like Susan, his granddaughter, but I get the feeling the granddaughter's coming in somewhere along the way here, and it should be very entertaining when she does. So again, I thought this episode, if I was going to score it out of 10, I would give it a solid 8.5. The goofy moments at the end kind of left me head scratching. I think if they'd left those out, it would be a solid 9. But yeah, 8.5, I think. But let me know your thoughts if you watched Boom, what you thought of it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hey, again, I talk about wrestling on here. I talk about various shows I'm watching, and now here I'm talking about Doctor Who. It's kind of how the Entertainment Guy channel works. Thank you guys so much for supporting it and its growth. Its growth has been a little like this, but still, when you look at it on a long enough line, it is doing that. So thank you guys so much for that. I will talk to you again soon.